welcome back to episode 5 of Le Chemin du Roi. My name is Lisa Elvin Steltari, and I am your genealogist, and I'm also a passionate traveler. In order to understand genealogy and do the research, it really is all about location, location, location. Understanding the places your ancestors would have lived at is critical to understanding and piecing together their lives. So when I've been studying the Quebec history, if you will, and doing videos, I felt like I was a traveler without a map, no GPS. And all of a sudden, I began to piece together the map in my head. And then I understood it was on this particular route and this particular Chemin du Roi. And then I began to say, I want to travel here. So this series is actually my own travel checklist or itinerary that I, at some point, right now it's virtual, but I promise you, eventually it will be an actual trip that we will take together. Let's get started, shall we? Oh, before I let you go, remember, I do have a Have Roots Will Travel website. Of course, this YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter and on Facebook. I would love it if you would sign up and sign up for the notifications and also like this video. All of that helps me out and lets me know that you're liking what I do. All right. Thanks so much. Let's get started. So the first part of this is understanding that we are on a road called Le Chemin du Roi. And the idea for doing this particular highway, as I've talked about, is while I was doing a concurrent series, which is still going on, called Les Filles du Roi. And many of these ladies settled along the St. Lawrence River, which is where Le Chemin du Roi is. And so it all kind of came together with my trying to understand where these women came to and what towns do they help to settle, and an understanding of how this created the Quebec we know today. Let's first talk about the road itself as it exists today. If you've been following along, you will have heard this before. Those of you just joining us, I just want to make sure you get a sense of how long this road really is. It is part of the Quebec highway system, which is known as Route 138. So when we're on the Chemin du Roi, we are literally on Route 138. Now, Route 138 is a very, very, very long road that starts out in a very remote town called Blanc-Sablon. You can see on the left side of your screen in that first picture an arrow pointing to Blanc-Sablon, and it winds its way all the way down through Quebec, ending at a town called Elgin, which is directly at the New York-American border. It's a whopping 880 miles or 1,420 kilometers, as we like to say in Canada. Now, it passes through 5 regions of Quebec. There are 17. So it's a nice big chunk of Quebec that you're going to see on this road, if you ever take the entire road. Montérégie, Lanaudière, Mauricie, Capitale-Nationale, and Côte-Nord regions of Quebec. Now, part of this highway is known as that Chemin du Roi, or King's Highway, and so which is one of the oldest highways in Canada. This is the portion in the right side of your screen. You're going to see on this yellow line. This is the portion that we're traveling along as we explore the history of Quebec together. Now, how did it all start? Well, in 1706, the Conseil Supérieur, the Grand Council of New France, decreed that a road should be built to connect the houses along the north shore of the St. Lawrence. Beginning they asked for this in 1706, and in typical government fashion, 25 years later, they actually started the work. 1731, under the supervision of Grandvoyer, senior road surveyor, Eustache Meunier de Boisclair. And it was completed, I think, record time, 1737, 6 years. Not too bad, considering some of the construction projects I've seen in my lifetime. Now, upon completion, the Chemin du Roi was 7.4 meters, which is about 24 feet wide, and it was over 280 kilometers, about 170 miles long, and it crossed over 37 seigneuries. As we explore Quebec and as we explore the history, and those of you who have ancestors in Quebec, the odds are you have an ancestor who lived along this road. That's just how it goes. Or it touched upon the road. Highly likely. The Chemin du Roi at the time was the longest road in existence north of Mexico. Now, in 1910, the portion of the Chemin du Roi on Montreal Island was renamed by the district and county of Montreal, and it was renamed Gouin Boulevard. So if you're on Gouin Boulevard in Montreal, you have to know that that is the old Chemin du Roi. It doesn't have any signs on it. You'll just have to trust me. When I do this trip in reality, I'm actually going to go start it on Gouin Boulevard. But you're not going to see any road markers or anything like that. Now, it was the first roadway built between Quebec City and Montreal that could accommodate wheel vehicles, which we mean carriages, obviously. And I think that in many respects, this very simple thing connected the roads, connected the people of Quebec in a way that had never happened before, and solidified their ability to kind of see each other and to connect each other. And I think that the strength of the Quebec culture and the strength of the Quebec history itself, the Chemin du Roi plays a very large role in this, you know, and it changed how people perceive distances and how they perceive that they weren't just a village here and a village there. They were connected. And that was, you know, that has kind of been something in history that we've always seen, that something comes along that connects people, whether it be the highway system in the United States, for example, or in Canada, or even the internet that connects us in some ways and makes us part of a small, you know, makes us feel that we're part of a smaller universe rather than the large one that we think we are in. Now, I entitled this, Are We There Yet? Because I want to make sure you know that despite the fact it's going to take 11 videos to complete this series, it actually is, if you started in Quebec City and went to Repentigny, it is about, according to Google Lady, 2 hours and 22 minutes. So it's not it's totally doable. You know, just straight in a car for sure. And along the road, you're going to see those Chemin du Roi markers. Sometimes they'll say Le Vieux Chemin. They'll say all kinds of different markers. People love to have their pictures taken. That would include me when I take the actual trip, and just kind of do the markers as we go. But just want to make sure you know that it's about 2 hour drive from start to finish. So let's get started, shall we? Now let's turn our attention to a town named Batiscan, which is a small community of about 1,000 people. And you can see it's right along Route 138. It is among the most beautiful villages in Quebec. My family can lay claim to be having their roots here, as many can. Even though it's a very small community, you will find that it's very, very big in terms of the historical impact and how many people's roots have touched upon Batiscan. Let's get to know it a little bit better. Now, the history of Batiscan begins with none other than Samuel de Champlain, who in 1609 wrote about this settlement as he was traveling to Lake Champlain. But in 1609, he meets Batiscan, you know, who was an Indian chief. It wasn't exactly spelt that name. In 1612, Champlain calls this area, he actually calls it Batiscan. And now, by 1636, Jacques Laferté is granted the seigneurie, which for a time was called Madeleine. Now, afterwards, in 1639, the seigneurie was divided yet again and given to the Jesuits. So nothing really happened here. It did not grow very fast, obviously. So it took until about 1666 for colonization to begin in earnest. And this is when people would come here. This is when you would actually have, you know, the church registries. They had a church here and all of that good stuff. But 1684, the Parish of Francois Xavier de Batiscan is formed. So that's when the registers of the church that you will be looking for can be found. If you have people that date even further back, some of them would be in Quebec, could be in Three Rivers. You'll have to, because there would be no parish formed here yet. Now, l'Église de Saint-François de Xavier was erected in 1866 by the architect Xavier. Now, this is an amazing church in that it has stood the test of time. It truly is where genealogy will start. You need to definitely explore this church. And obviously the cemetery, again, one of the oldest in Quebec. This is definitely a cemetery that's high on my list to kind of look at the stones, find out where my ancestors are buried. This is definitely where it all starts. So let's have a look at how the parish of Batiscan started. How did it work out? Well, prior to 1670, the inhabitants met at a home of Lieutenant Nicolas Rivard de Lavigne. Now, this name is very important to me because that is the name. Remember I told you my roots are very deep in this community? Well, that happens to be my 9 times great-grandfather. So very, very personal for me, absolutely. So they met at his home. By 1670 or 74, a wooden chapel was constructed, as I've talked about. 1684, the parish of Saint Francois de Xavier of Batiscan is formed, and a stone. Now, between 1697 and 1700, a stone church is built. Now, 1860, can you imagine? They went almost 200 years. They finally begged and said, we need a church. So the Bishop Thomas Cook of Trois-Rivières finally said, okay, you guys can have a church. And they had one of the most beautiful churches in all of Quebec, in my opinion. And for a small village, it truly is beautiful. All of the churches are nice. All of them will say to you, oh, no, we have the nicest church. But certainly, this is a remarkable one. So obviously one of the places that is a must-see is a place called Le Vieux Presbytère de Batiscan, which is really the rectory where the priest would have lived. And it is open to the public, yay, from May 30th to October 31st. Normal hours, I think 9 to 5 or 10 to 5, that sort of thing. And it houses exhibits and information about this town and about the area as well. And I think it is an important stop along your journey to really get a sense of Batiscan and how important it is to the development of this region. So definitely a place that's on my got to go to list. So I wanted to give you a little bit more information about, places to eat and to further, enhance your experience in Batiscan. First up was a place called Restorio, which is found in the Marina Village, which is really, the marina is a center point to the town. And, when I looked at the menu, it looked like, very, very Quebecois, very down-home kind of food, and definitely something that I would partake in. So definitely, and it's open, of course, during the summer season, because this is, after all, Quebec, and it's right on the water. The Bureau d'accueil touristique, which is a big fancy name for basically saying the tourism bureau, and it's a welcome spot, so definitely make your way here first. Bureau d'accueil touristique, very important. I've put the links in as well, and it houses inside of it and like kind of an art museum. It's got all kinds of really interesting things. Hanger, like, so they've done, instead of hanger, hangar. So I think that's very, what did I tell you about these Quebecers? And on the second floor is a Maritime Museum, which what I read, when I read it, I thought it was an incredible, just the history of the place and the history of the maritime and the sea in this particular area. And of course, an amazing view. Definitely going to check it out. And then Le Marché de Batiscan is a vegetable stand that is only open, again, seasonally. They have a Facebook page that I've included, so if you need some fresh fruit and vegetables and all kinds of good stuff, I would stop in there as well. Well, the next town we're going to be looking at is the town of Champlain. It has a population of just under 1,700 people. It's actually part of the Association of the Most Beautiful Towns in Quebec, as you can see from the amazing pictures that I have put up here. It's like a picture postcard. is actually the oldest town, one of the oldest, I'm sorry, not the oldest town, is the 8th oldest town in New France. I'm including a website to the municipality, which will give you an excellent place to start. It's got lots of information. You can click on that translate to English button that if you right click, left click. I haven't talked enough about that, but you just right click on it. It'll say translate to English on most documents, and at least it'll give you, it's not a perfect translation, but it'll definitely give you a better idea. Well, as you can expect in a town called Champlain, it was actually created by and named by Samuel de Champlain. He actually named the Rivière de Champlain after himself, of course. And by 1643, the first attempts to settle were not successful, largely due to the fact that it was so distant from the other areas that were inhabitable at that time, and also the threat of the Iroquois kept people away. By 1664, however, Étienne Pézard de la Touche, the first seigneur, he names the land Champlain, so it becomes Champlain. In 1665, the first families that established in Champlain, so I put them up just in case that happens to be yours. It's not mine. Desrosiers, Chorel, and Dandonneau. These are all among, and there may be more, so please note if there's any other names that I have omitted. And that is the beginnings of Champlain. Now, this is super interesting to me, at least. We've got 4 churches in 4 centuries. That's how old this place is. The first church would have been constructed simply at the start of the parish in 1664. And the second church was built about 1698, and it would last for the next 100 years. And then they finally got another church around 1806. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And finally, the 4th church was completed in 1878. One thing that's really interesting to note about this particular place is that the previous 3 churches were not damaged by fire or other issues. And so each church's history was enveloped by the succeeding one, creating kind of a link. And it's one of the reasons why this church preserves some of the oldest paintings in Quebec, one of the oldest paintings in Quebec before 1687. It has the oldest wooden sanctuary lamp in Quebec before 1687, the oldest sculpture before 1687, and the oldest engraving, which I think late 17th century. So it's one of the reasons why if you really want to touch history, if you will, this is definitely one of those places where time has stood still. It has been able to be preserved. So that is really a remarkable thing. So the church that is in Champlain is l'Église Notre-Dame de la Visitation de Champlain. It is truly magnificent, and you can see the inside on the upper right hand of this picture. Truly remarkable, right along Route 138, I'm sorry. And they do have visits that you can actually go to. I think they're, you kind of sign up. So definitely have a look at that. And I've included the link for you to check that out. And of course, the cemetery, Notre-Dame de la Visitation de Champlain. Again, remember, at each successive church, they would have moved the cimetière, and so this cimetière dates from the mid-1800s as well. Well, if you want to walk in their footsteps, you can find no better place, I think, than Champlain. And it has 2 kind of different walking paths. One of them will actually start at the church that is currently. It'll go through the convent. It'll take you through the pier. On the water, there's a number 4 area, which is the Terre Ancestrale des Junots. So if you happen to be descendant from Junots, it's right there. They have a couple of other things that are the sites of the former churches that were there, so that's really cool. And the Manoir Seigneurial, the Seigneur's manor would have been the site of. They don't have it still in existence. And so you can actually walk on the grounds, which I think would be remarkable. And I plan on doing this as well. I think I'm going to be there for a while. right on the Route 138. In a house that dates from the late 19th century, you can see the Resto Pub Manoir Antique. When I looked at the menu, I was struck by the variety from pizzas and poutines to seafood and steak. I mean, it's just, I'm sure, fantastic food. It's really something for everyone. So I've listed the website as well. And then, it's not a restaurant, it's a place where you can go and buy fresh fish. Um, and it specializes in salmon and le Simon de l'Atlantique is it's got some obviously seafood and salmon that can be purchased depending on how you're traveling through Quebec. I'm hoping to travel with my RV trailer and hopefully we'll be able to cook up some fish that I pick up at Le Simon. I've included their website information as well. And with that, we end episode 5. I hope you've enjoyed it. We are going toward episode 6, which is the big city of Trois-Rivières in the next episode. Until then, au revoir.